Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Can you reverse age-related muscle loss? In other words, you look at older people, they're kind of humped over, their muscles just aren't there, their legs are thin, they get little hanging things on their arms. Yeah, is that reversible? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I start on that, if you're on YouTube today and you are not a member of the USA Global TV and Radio Network subscriber, please seriously consider joining the USA Global TV and Radio and the Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck network on YouTube. We would really, truly appreciate it. Getting back to our problem at hand, and I call it an energy management issue, an engine problem. We have energy in our bodies, but it's just not getting to where we need to go. And as such, that becomes a problem because we actually have the ability to do a lot of things. So let me go ahead and bring up a slide thing here and we will get ready to talk about it. Okay. In my book, Aging Sucks, I talk about what causes us to age at the cellular level in the body. I also tell you what counters that. And essentially, it's a simple, like a teeter-totter or a tug-of-war. You have activities are going on in our body that damage literally every cell, every second that we're alive. But we also have, resilience in our body that damage that occurs from free radicals, inflammation, oxidation, a number of different areas that can be controlled because our body has the ability to make those repairs. In some cases, multiple backup systems that just really and truly make our body a marvel of wonder. And so we have things that are going on, but as we age, there are several of these little things that are happening that lead to something else. It's not a single pathway, a straight road for aging. No, it's a lot of different roads converging all at one place. So if I'm looking at something that's a single underlying cause, it's really not a single, it's a systemic cause. So let's go ahead and look at that from that perspective and we'll go from there. I have several things going on at the same time. In other words, you might say, how do you know whether you're aging or not? Well, generally you're weaker than what you used to be. You have balance issues. I know I'm weaker than I used to be. I don't have any balance issues. In fact, I think I'm pretty decent on that. I've been doing a lot of vibration plate stuff where I can close my eyes and move my head around and move all sorts of gyrations and maintain balance while I'm on the vibration plate. So I think my balance is pretty decent. Tiring more quickly, I think that's a daily thing. How much you eat, what's the stress going on, what's the quality of your sleep. There's a lot of things that you can say, yeah, I'm tired. It could be just something simple like dehydration. It could be something you're just not getting the right kinds of foods to fill up the muscles in the brain. Waistline, absolutely. Yeah, you got one of those. No problem with that one. Working on it, but yeah, waistline is probably more predominant, especially you start getting over 40. And recovery, I don't think my recovery is still good, but for most people, recovery takes longer. So those are some of the things that we notice when we're aging. So what causes it? Well, aging causes it because some of those causes I talked about a moment ago that are in the body. I'll tell you what, let me just put my glasses on so I can read here. In our body, if I have a lifestyle that's just very low activity, not very challenging, that's going to tend to make my muscle mass less and my strength less. my endurance less. If I have low protein intake, in other words, my muscles need protein. If I'm not getting it, or I'm not getting it at the right time, then that becomes an issue because it's not being fed properly. It's like having a baby and not feeding it, or trying to overfeed it at one point in time. The baby's not adjusting to it. Could have digestive issues. As we get older, the stuff in our gut, our microbiome, is just not functioning the way it used to. Now we can do a lot of things for that and prime it. As we get older, we get that little belly, a couple, 3 extra inches or more. Well, that usually is an indication that we might also have insulin resistance. And when we start having insulin resistance, we may actually have other metabolic issues that are going on at the same time. And so if I have insulin resistance as one aspect of a metabolic problem, I probably have another one where whatever nutrients I'm taking into my body, my cells are not getting them. They may get half of them, they may get 2/3, they may not get much at all. And there's reason for that. And part of it is the fact that we have this cause of aging called the intercellular communication, altered intercellular communication. And the message goes out to the cell saying, hey, here's some protein or, calcium or whatever is needed, but the cell doesn't recognize it. As such, it's not going to accept it the way it normally would be. We also we get older, we start having one of these more zombie cells, and they create a lot of inflammation in the body. And so you have inflammation coming from many sources, but when it gets to be chronic and systemic, that becomes a major problem with your fatigue and other things that you have. If we don't get proper sleep, we don't get good quality sleep, that becomes an issue too, because our bodies can't repair itself the way it's supposed to be. Stress is another one. If you're not taking care of stress on literally almost on an hourly basis, that mounts up, and usually you see a lot of that in the gut area, because your cortisol is their stress hormone, but you get 4 times more cortisol receptors in your gut, and so you end up storing more fat. If your diet isn't adequately, say, balanced nutrition, then that becomes an issue. If you try to, maybe do too much at one time, now you're starting to suffer from that recovery issue, which may lead to fatigue and other things. So there's just a lot of things in there that you're starting to notice it, but maybe you don't know what's causing it. And that's kind of why we're doing this show today. So if I look at, I'm losing muscle mass, I'm losing strength, what can I do? Okay, well, the typical old way of doing that was eat this, don't eat that, take this, avoid that. That was the standard. I mean, even up to about 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And they're trying to figure out, okay, you're 156 pounds, you need, 2 point this of that times your weight times this, whatever. And they're trying to figure out where your things are coming from. And they're saying, okay, you need some carbohydrates, but you don't need it from bread and rice and pasta and other things. You need it from berries and spinach and other kinds of things. So they're trying to pick the right places to get this. But as I talked about last week, there is no essential carbohydrate in your body. You can live your entire life and never have a carb, because your body converts muscle, it converts protein and fats into carbs in the places in the body that we need it. And most of these things they did in the old way of trying to fix this losing muscle as you get older was short term, and it really didn't have a good understanding. If I go back into about 2010, 2011, we kind of knew what caused us to age, but somewhere around 2013, they actually put it in writing and got concurrence with a number of people. And they had 8 different causes of aging. And then a few years later, 2023, they came up with 4 more. And so they have a very definitive list of things that cause aging. Well, a little bit later, they came up with, okay, these are causes of health. So if I do these, I know I'm going to cause myself to age. If I do these, I'm going to cause myself to be healthy. So part of the new way of doing things is understanding why. I worked for a company, an oil field service company, and one of my jobs was to understand why something failed. We would make tools. They would be offshore, onshore, and depending on what kind of tool, you could actually have the tool that you could measure the formation in the ground while you were drilling, or after the well was drilled, you put a tool down and you actually measure, where's the oil at, where's the gas at, where's the water at, etc. And so understanding why, I got involved in this project called Taproot. And you'd have to say, well, okay, why did that happen? Why did it fail? Okay. Then you have about 6 or 7 or 8 different things you go down, training, lots of individual applications that, okay, why did this fail? Okay, then you get an answer to that one, and you go, well, okay, fine, I understand. Why did that fail? And you're trying to get down to essentially a root cause. So from my perspective, my look at things nowadays is, if I know the cause of a problem, I can generally fix it. I had a really interesting problem with this company because we were making tools that had nuclear sources in them. And the nuclear sources were some of the things that go out and determine what kind of formation you have. Well, generally speaking, we had at least triple redundancy on anything you put a nuclear source in. You didn't want something popping out down the well or falling out driving behind lots and lots and lots of safety issues on that. Well, there was this well off of Nigeria that the drilling guy out there said, no, we're not going to drill, because he got ready to put an O-ring in to put the source in, nuclear source, and there was no O-ring groove to take the O-ring. And he says, this is not right. I don't want to take a chance on losing something. Even though he had triple redundancy, he made the decision saying no. So we got that, back very, very quickly to our manufacturing facility. And the first thing I did was, how many do we have in inventory? Okay, go out and look at them. I had 3 of them there. All 3 did not have an O-ring. Okay, why? Okay, well, I started with receiving inspection. Show me the drawings that had, and show me where this thing is at. Okay, well, the drawing has it. The drawings are supposed to be there. Well, what happened? Why did it get here without that? Well, it turned out the part was made in Austria. They typically have other parts that are sent in. There was an issue with inventory. They didn't get the part that they needed, so they would typically put that part in and then machine the O-ring. Okay, so it was a process problem. The company had said, we don't have that part that you need. Send us, we'll get it over here and do it ourselves. Okay, miscommunication, taking things out of process, that's a problem. Then I'd say, okay, why didn't you inspect it here when it came in the door? And we pull up the deal, and there it is. There's a dimension. There's everything's supposed to be there, but it wasn't checked. Okay, things happen, but it's the only thing on the page that wasn't checked. The knowledge of the inspector, had been there 20 years, should have caught it. He catches it every other time. Just missed it. That's a cause. So it gets into the next part of manufacturing where they're supposed to put the O-ring in there to start putting this thing together. The O-ring doesn't fit. So they grab another one a little smaller, fits fine. So it goes into the next part, and the same thing happens. They end up taking a smaller O-ring, not part of that tool, and it gets in through the entire manufacturing process. It goes out to one of the test wells. They put a nuclear source in there. They had to put another smaller O-ring in. Boom. It goes down there. It tests fine. It still has the wrong O-ring. It gets over there to testing, and everything else is going on. It passes all of that. Still doesn't have the right O-ring. It gets shipped to Nigeria. The people there, first thing they do is they rip everything off, put brand new stuff in. They notice that the O-ring wasn't the right size. They put a smaller one in, and on and on and on. It finally gets out to the rig, and the guy says, no, stop. He was the guy who was actually right. So we had one of these tools down in South America. We had to basically fix the tool we had right here, get that done, ship that down there, express as best we could to take care of that job that was happening. So I go over to another local vendor that was sending the part to Austria, and I said, okay, fine, show me what on your drawings, why isn't this thing checked? So we go down, and sure enough, I'm talking to the director of QA. We're sitting there looking at the inspector. We're looking at the drawing. Every single measurement that inspector took, he had checked, except for the O-ring groove. Human error, things happen. Understanding why those happen helps us able to do things better in our lives. So if you want to learn how your body is interconnected, it's not a single thing that's causing a problem, but it helps you to make a better decision with regard to your diet, your sleep, your stress management, and things like that. Many, many things happen. And if you know why, you can generally take care of yourself far, far better, because that's one of the reasons we do take care of ourselves better. So if I look at our energy management system, I have, I'm weaker if I'm looking at those things up there in the top 5 of them. I'm weaker. I have fatigue. I have balance issues. I have a waistline that's growing. I have a recovery that's slower. I'm not experiencing 5 separate problems getting older. I'm actually seeing one systemic disruption. In other words, I have a cause of aging. Actually, I have several causes of aging, but it's when I look at how does my body manage my energy, and my energy is basically my ATP production from my mitochondria. So I have ATP that supports my glucose management in my body, my glycogen, where I store that energy in my muscles, and I have fat that I store around my waist or anywhere else in my body, because that fat can be called on to be used as a source of energy. You hear about the ketogenic diet, where now we're not using glucose for a body fuel, we're using ketones, fat, for our body fuel. So you go on a ketogenic diet, and I went on one Atkins many years ago, and I lost 7 inches in my waist and 44 pounds, I think, in 4 months. And I loved it. I thought it was the neatest thing in the world. The only thing I didn't do was, of course, I read 5 books on it before I started, and it really didn't talk about the carbs. It says, I was on less than 10 grams of carbs a day, and I loved it for years. Easy. But I lost some endurance from running. I could run 6 or 8 miles easily. I couldn't run 2 when I was on the Atkins diet. But when I got off the Atkins diet, I found out I was osteopenia. In other words, I started having bone density issues. Well, that shocked me, because I'd been a runner forever and ever and ever. I'd lifted weights forever. So there's certain things there that my body was not giving me that I was expecting. And it turned out that had I been eating fruits and vegetables for a carb intake rather than avoiding donuts and pasta and bread, I would have probably not had that problem. Because when you look at how you actually build strong bones, there's a certain chemical process that happens, fairly simple, fairly easy, that gets that calcium to the bones to keep you nice and strong. But it's a different chemical process that takes the calcium out of the bones. And so when I was on Atkins, that chemical process that takes it out of the bones, I was exponentially activating that one big time. And I wasn't providing enough calcium to get into the bones. So the problem with the calcium is the fact that if it doesn't get to the bones, it goes to your heart valves and arteries, and that becomes a major issue. So that's a problem. So let's see here. So if I look at this thing as a system, I have inflammation, I have insulin, visceral fat, I have muscle, and I have mitochondria. Mitochondria is the one that actually generates the ATP, your energy. That's down inside your cell. You have quite a few of them in every cell. And if you're working out and you're building your muscles and you're improving your strength and your endurance and your mass, you're actually, one of the things that happens is your cells actually grow new mitochondria. So let's say you have 100. I know you got a lot more than that. Let's say you have 100 and you're working out all the time. Okay, next month maybe you have 110 or 115, because the more you work out, the more you exercise, the more you're forcing your cells to create new mitochondria, which creates new energy, because now you have a new demand on that energy. But your health requires that energy too. It requires just as much as your muscles do, your brain and everything else. But when you start having visceral fat, that actually it's an organ right next to your other organs for all practical purposes. We think of it as fat, but it acts like an organ. It actually creates inflammation, creates a lot of problems. Insulin is an issue. Inflammation, many sources of that. We'll talk about that in a moment. In fact, we're getting real close to a commercial break. So I think what I want to do, rather than jump into the next subject, is let's go ahead and take a commercial break now, and then we'll come back in about a minute and a half.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
Brad O'Loughlin, we're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And we're talking today about, can we reverse age-related muscle loss? That's basic talk today. And when you look at this thing, I showed a slide up here where I have visceral fat and insulin and muscle, et cetera. Essentially what you're looking at is the energy management system of our body. And when this thing is humming, we're good. We're bulletproof. Everything is working. However, as we get older, there's another term, just like insulin resistance, or at least you've heard of it. There's another term called anabolic resistance. That anabolic resistance is what causes our bodies to start not doing the repairs the way we need to have done. We're not building the tissues that we need to have done. And a lot of that is part of the fact that the communications that are going out from cell to cell, to organ, back to your brain and back forth, they're just not working because of that altered intercellular communication issue that I talked about earlier. A signal goes out nice and strong, and it's not being interpreted. There's just so many things that happen at the cellular level of the body, and when one happens, like inflammation, that creates a problem. When your mitochondria aren't producing enough energy, that creates a problem. And so you end up with multiple problems on top of each other. So if I look at visceral fat, well, visceral fat is one of those things. It acts like an organ. It really and truly acts like an organ in the body. It's not just fat that's stored by. We have fat that's around our gut. That's our what do you call it? There's our dermal fat. Not dermal, but you have a fat that's you can reach down and grab a hold of, and that's the stuff we see that jiggles like Jello. However, the fat that's right up next to all of the organs, different kind of fat, really, because you also have brown fat and white fat, but that visceral fat is the one that's most dangerous. Now, if you have a scale you can stand on barefoot, or have some other, there's a lot of different measurements. You can actually measure, and it'll tell you, okay, you have 12.3% visceral fat or 8.2% visceral fat. And the visceral fat has a range it can live in and not become a problem. It's thin enough. Okay, I'm not interfering with insulin and other factors going on in the body, adding inflammation, adding other issues. So you want to try visceral fat, I think below 9%. But anything over that starts becoming an issue, and anything over 12 or 13 becomes a major issue. But if you don't even know what it is, how do you know what to do? And so the first thing is awareness. Maybe $20 investment, you go get a scale that you can measure 20, 30, 40 different things in your body. Not an uncommon thing nowadays to see. In a healthy state, everything is working. It's just magic. Mitochondria is just cranking out energy. I'm exercising. I'm getting more mitochondria. Boom. Everything's working the way it's supposed to be. But when I start getting up there in age, because some of these causes of aging are not being repaired or countered as well as they should be, I'm starting to get accumulated damage over time. And when that accumulated damage exceeds the body's ability to repair itself, now I start having what we call accelerated aging, increased risk of disease. Lots of things are going on because, I'm getting older. I don't have as many cells that I can use to, I call stem cells. I don't have as many stem cells as I can in order to make the repairs. If my kidney is not working right, the brain says, send that stem cell over there. The old cell dies, boom, new cell goes in there. Everything's working fine. But sometimes that old cell that's supposed to die doesn't. It becomes a zombie cell. That's a problem. Sometimes as I'm getting older, I don't have enough stem cells to send to my kidney to say fix something. So now my kidney is operating less than a peak efficiency. So inflammation, chronic inflammation, causes havoc all throughout the entire body, especially at the cellular level. So when you're starting to have a problem at that cellular level, what's causing that inflammation? Well, could be, your immune system. It's not working as well as it should. You could have an autoimmune issue where your immune system doesn't recognize, it's recognizing healthy stuff as not healthy and attacking it. Obviously, you could have germs, any kind of problem there, injury. You could have lifestyle issues, smoking, too much alcohol, wrong kinds of food. Maybe you can just be overweight. That's a major problem. Toxins. I think toxins is probably one of the most dangerous problems we have, but it's just one of those things that people concentrate on. But we have toxins primarily from skincare products, probably more so than anything else because it's right in the skin. A lot of nanotechnology, boom, and it's into the skin faster than you can check a stick at. But the biggest thing is probably you're eating foods that contain a lot of omega-6 fatty acids. That's any fatty acid that comes from a plant, your safflower, your sunflower, your corn oils. All of those are omega-6s, and that happens to be an essential fatty acid. Our bodies can't make it. Our bodies can't make omega-3s either. So when your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio gets outside the range of around 3, maybe 4 to 1, we start now having inflammation created in our body. So that becomes a problem. So that is another cause of it. There's just lots and lots of things that cause our inflammation. And when that inflammation becomes systemic all over the whole body, now we start looking at slower recovery, fatigue, weakness, all sorts of things. In the old view of understanding part of our aging, the view was don't do this, do this. And it was very, very specific. Okay, 2.2 grams of this per year. Anyway, very methodical. Again, not based on a whole lot, because most of the theory back then was we had livers and oh, I can't even think of the name of it. But anyway, they were thinking of it more of a scaffolding movement. Our muscles were actually being used to draw things in to make a muscle to move around. But when you start looking at it from let's say from a metabolic condition, I have a lot of energy that needs in the muscle, glycogen. So if I have glucose, our insulin shoves that glucose into the body in the form of glycogen. That glycogen is usable energy stored in the muscle. So I now have muscles that require glycogen. If I don't have the glycogen there, then I have a problem. Well, I need the glucose for that. But I also need protein in order to build new muscle fibers, new muscle cells. And that protein is part of that metabolic viewpoint that we're looking at now. What can I do at the cellular level to enhance the intake, uptake of glycogen? Insulin resistance is one that counters that. Uptake of protein adequately. And the part of that problem is the altered intercellular communication. I'm not getting the cell to respond. It has the right material there, it's just not responding. Or I don't have the material there. Or I'm not even getting the energy out of my mitochondria. Just lots and lots and lots of things that can happen. So we're now aware that the fact that I need my ATP for my mitochondria, but I also need glycogen. I also need the protein synthesis. I need a lot of other amino acids that are there. Just a lot of things that are going on in the cellular level that if you're not feeding them properly, communicating with them properly, they become a problem. And we see these problems primarily as we're aging. So if I were to look at this thing as, it says, this is an AI drawing, it says how one organ dictates the whole system. Well, they're talking about building and preserving muscle, our insulin sensitivity, shrinking our visceral fat, lowering our inflammation, and we protect our mitochondria at the energy level. But I look at that thing and I say to myself, okay, it's really and truly, if I'm getting down to the metabolic level regulation of energy in my cells, that's actually controlled somewhere else in my body. It's not necessarily down to a single organ per se. Because I look at it, what actually controls my metabolism is my hypothalamus, my thyroid, my pancreas, and my adrenals. Those are the ones that I really need to pay attention to, because those are the ones that say, turn it on, do this, go do that, stop, whatever it may happen to be. So yeah, that's a good slide. It's very representative of the fact that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And if all of a sudden visceral fat is becoming an issue, or insulin sensitivity is becoming an issue, I'm not getting down to protecting the mitochondria, and I'm not getting the energy restoration, the energy regulation, or the energy production that is needed in order to satisfy the body's needs. So, and if you look at the way they have it arranged, inflammation sitting right there next to the mitochondria, and that's probably a good deal, because your mitochondria actually produce what's called oxidation, ROS, reactive oxidation stress. And that ROS is at a low level. It's actually part of the process. It's needed at that low level. But when things are going awry and that ROS starts to creep up, now I'm starting to get excessive oxidation, and that becomes a problem. And that's where that chronic inflammation starts to form. So, but there's a term that I use in my book called cascading. So you have this thing happening, this thing over here, this thing over here. All of a sudden, any one or two, not a problem. You get 4 or 5, and all of a sudden you start getting a cascading effect that's really taking over your whole body at the same time. So if I want to start trying to control these things, what can I do? Well, I have my downward slide of my body with age. My muscles, I really have to let them do something. But muscles need protein. More importantly, they actually need a particular amino acid called leucine. You get that eggs, a lot of sources, but eggs, salmon, meat, and that leucine is what is the communicator. So if you're not getting the right amino acid to the right cell to say, do this, then I have a problem, because I'm not going to accept what the body needs because I don't have the right messenger. And so that leucine is super critical. And most of us, we kind of shun eggs, we kind of shun meat, and we eat too much of this or too much of that. And the carbs are not helpful because they cause an insulin resistance problem over time. But then you also have other lifestyle factors, maybe, smoking, alcohol, your balanced nutrition isn't as balanced as you think it is. Your stress management isn't being managed by an any level of effectiveness. The quality of your sleep is no longer what you would consider high quality. But the thing is, each one of those things are, in fact, correctable. So if I want to say, let me start doing something, what can I do? Well, let's start with the things that come into your body, your food. You want to make sure the right stuff comes in the right quantity at the right time. But you don't want to take in those toxins and a lot of carbs. You want to have a fairly good level of balanced nutrition. But if I'm old, maybe I need to eat more eggs. Maybe I need to have more salmon. Maybe I need to eat other things that provide my body with the right messengers and the right raw materials that are going to make the changes that need to happen. So I have to sustain a metabolic engine in my body, and I need raw materials to do that. The raw materials without the signals, not going to help me. The signals without the raw materials, not going to help me. The wrong signals are not going to help me. Very, very critical. Training. If you're not moving your muscles, you're not giving the resistance that's needed there, you're not challenging your muscles to do things, now you're under training, you're now part of the problem, you're not part of the solution. The solution is I do need to have some level of training. I don't need to go to the gym every day and lift weights. No, but if you're 70-year-old or greater, you do need to have movement. You need to have some level of control. And balance is there, strength is there, flexibility is there, lots of things that can be worked on at home. But that training is super critical. And then once you get those raw materials to the right places, you're activating the muscles to create new protein cells, new protein fibers, et cetera, in the muscles. Now you got to preserve it. That means that you got to maintain your lifestyle that's going to support that. You're going to recover. You're going to adapt accordingly. Your sleep is going to be quality enough in order to provide messages out to the body to make the repairs that are needed. And so what you're doing is overall reducing the inflammation, increasing your mitochondrial ATP energy production, and doing the things that need to be done in order to counter this anabolic resistance. So as I'm looking at my energy management system, aging is not a thing that it's going to happen. Yes, you're getting older chronologically, but you don't have to get older biologically. And part of understanding a lot of our aging processes involve the energy management system in our body. When we get right down to it, the mitochondria, you really need to know how to assist your mitochondria, how to assist your organs, how to assist your muscles in maintaining that muscle balance, that muscle strength, that muscle mass. My book, Aging Sucks, goes into a lot of detail into the causes of aging and into the causes of or support of repair. And with that, I'm going to surrender today. Aging Sucks there, and the guesswork, there is hope. This is not a health book. It's not an anti-aging book. It's not a longevity book. It's a book about understanding the causes of aging and what controls you really have over everything in your body. It's amazing how much you have, because everything you do every single day, your diet, your exercise, your stress management, your quality of sleep, all of those things you do every single day, they either can help your health or hurt your health. And that's what we're down to. Red O'Loughlin here, getting ready to sign off. I have a mantra, not a mantra. There was a guy who used to be here on radio, here on TV, talk show. He always ended the show with, don't let anybody steal your joy. And I've been thinking about that lately, and joy is a big part of our lives. So I think I'm going to kind of steal shamelessly, because it's been 20 years or more since he was on the air. But I'm going to say, take care. Don't let anybody steal your joy. And we'll catch you next week. Bye now.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at USAGlobalTV.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.